Hi, Tube. This is a little bit of a different video. So I was playing some Legacy this weekend, and I ran into some Death and Taxes matches, and I found them really informative. And because this is a matchup that I struggle with this matchup so much, I decided to record it and turn it into a video and talk about it. So here's what we got. I won the die roll. We both reveal Yorion since we're both on Yorion 80 card DnT. I mulled a 6. Actually, we both mulled a 6, and I put my Cauldron Complete on the bottom of my library. Because I went like, if this is DnT, all the rest of these cards are relevant. Goes to Plowshares. Kills their Mother of Runes and just gets rid of anything else that's pesky. Dark Commando can deal with anything that isn't Cauldron Complete, and if they're on the Saga build, this has so much more game. And Timeless Dragon just ensures that you hit your land drops. I cannot stress enough how important it is in the DnT mirror to hit your land drops, or else you will just die. So this is the keep. And I started on plains. I tapped my plains because I was like, okay, play my Mother of Runes, but this was my Swords to Plowshares, and I was like, what am I doing? So I accidentally pump faked my opponent out, which, by the way, Strahan 92 is someone I've played against before, and they're a very good Death and Taxes player. So if you're queued up against them, they're probably going to be playing Death and Taxes, and they're pretty good, so good luck to you. They similarly play Plains, and they play a Mother of Runes, which is perfect. I get to just swords this instantly. You do want to kill Mother of Runes pretty early on in the matchup, because Mother of Runes will always eat a removal spell in some way, shape, or form, and results in card advantage by giving your opponents more dangerous threats. Your opponent's Stoneforge Mystics, your opponent's Cauldron Complete tokens or Germ tokens made off of Cauldron Complete and Batter Skull. Things that are holding Umezawa's Jite. It will always protect those. So you should just insta-kill it when you can. And if you're able to play your Mother of Runes and stick it around, you're in a much better position to blank pretty much everything that they do. So I pass the turn. I draw a Wasteland, which is not very good in the Death and Taxes mirror unless they play Urza's Saga. I conceal that information and I play Plains so that I can cycle Timeless Dragon. What I should have done here is that I should have played Rishadan Port so that I had the option to port them. I wouldn't be porting them this next turn, I think. I am pretty in on getting Timeless Dragon and getting land number 5, so that way my Yorion becomes relevant later. But that's my misstep. That's one of my missteps. I believe I have others. They play their land. They tap it both. They play their Stoneforge Mystic. And they get Jite, which is the strongest card in the Death and Taxes mirror. You always need to answer it in some way, shape, or form, which I do. I have Cathar Commando in hand, which is perfect. And I think here... Yeah, here I don't power out my Cathar Commando. I sort of want to conceal that information. I just instead plain cycle my Timeless Dragon, grab a Plains, say go. And then I draw my own Mother of Runes. My Timeless Dragon popped out. So here I just play it. I'm hoping they don't have another land or they don't have removal for it. But if they do, I mean they do. So they Recruiter and grab a Flicker Wisp so that they can start flickering their board and building a card advantage by getting more artifacts with Stoneforge Mystic, like their own Cauldron Complete, or building up card advantage by getting all their creatures thanks to Recruiter. So it's pretty powerful here. They attack in, I let it go. Killing the Stoneforge Mystic when it reveals Umezawa's Jit is not very potent. And I know I just ranted on about how, Flicker Wisp can flicker out Stoneforge Mystic and start building card advantage that way. But you can build so much more card advantage with the Recruiter of a Guard that I would rather catch Recruiter of the Guard in a block than Stoneforge Mystic. Stoneforge Mystic can only grab them 3 more cards. Recruiter of the Guard can grab them any card in the list. So here we just take this attack for 1, especially since we're not worried about this damage, we should just take it. And to be mana efficient, I power out Cathar Commando. And now I have Mother of Runes and Cathar Commando up, so that way if they had a removal spell and wanted to get rid of the Cathar Commando, they'd need to kill the Mother of Runes first, and then they'd need 2 removal spells. I draw a Skyclave here, and I decide to Skyclave out the Recruit of the Guard, because that is the strongest thing that they can flicker with their Flicker Wisp, I feel. Because if I flickered out, if I Skyclaved their Stoneforge Mystic, then they would say, okay, Recruiter, Flicker, grab a Stoneforge Mystic, or grab whatever else they needed. So I felt like this was the right choice. And here what they just do is they flicker out their Stoneforge Mystic, they get it back, and then they grab Cauldron. Which means I need to draw, on this draw step, I needed to either draw removal for the Stoneforge Mystic or something to deal with the Cauldron. Just something that was gas, and I draw one of my worst top decks, which is Vial. So I play my Vial, I Wasteland them off of Karakas, and then I'm hoping to just port them and out-tempo them. They smartly put in Cauldron on their upkeep. And then they don't have another land. So then they attack for 8, and I block with Skyclave, give it protection. But thing here, this doesn't actually save you any points of damage, because the Cauldron has Trample. And because now it cannot assign damage to the Skyclave Apparition, it is free to send all of that damage to your face. So I just take a hit for 8 here. And then I get to my turn, I uptook Vial, I untap all the things, I fall to 13. I draw another Mother of Runes, which is a really bad top deck. So I keep my Mother of Runes in hand here. I don't want to play it, and I don't want to Vial it in. I'm basically representing that I have Swords to Plowshares. What I want to do is I want to be able to pitch this Mother of Runes if I draw a Solitude. Yorion is a much stronger card to keep in hand, and I do not want to flicker it, mostly because if I do get a Solitude, that's great, then I can hopefully survive long enough to either hard cast it or, in a pinch, flash it in, or evoke it using Mother of Runes. And Mother of Runes is a much better pitch card than anything else. It's just so weak at this stage of the game. And I want to be able to Yorion flicker the Skyclave Apparition so that I can start answering their other parts of the board, or answer their Jet if they play that. Either way. So here they draw another land, they attack for 8 again, and I'm in the spot of needing to deal with this Germ Token, or similar. So they Skyclave, and they Skyclave my Vial here. And I just say okay, because again, I don't want to put in this Mother of Runes. I want to be able to pitch it. So I draw land number 5, which, this would survive me the turn. Here's what I do. I flicker out I play Yorion. I flicker out Skyclave. And then I Skyclave out their Flyer. So now we're at an even board position, where it's 4 creatures versus 4 creatures. And I can block the Germ Token and give Yorion protection from black. Or I can just block the Germ Token with Yorion. I can't give it protection for black, but I can block here and not take any damage because 5 toughness, this can't trample over. And I can get some easy enough blocks on some other things. I can take out this 3/3 by blocking with Cathar Commando and then giving it Pro Blue, etc. I'm feeling pretty good here. They rip Karakas off the top, and we know they didn't have the land because on turn 3, or turn 4, whichever it was, they didn't play a land. After I wastelanded them, they didn't play a land. They only kept up 2. So they drew land off the top, which is perfect because it let them go Skyclave Apparition into Karakas, bounce my Yorion. And that ends the game because I do not have enough toughness to successfully block Germ Token and survive. And even if I did, they'd still probably have enough to get in here. So it's pretty rough for me. That's the end of this game. Game 1, not that exciting. Game 2 and Game 3 have a little bit more meat to it. So I'll show you my sideboard plan. So this is my current deck list. I'm not saying that this sideboard plan, I'm not saying that this sideboard plan is in any way, shape, or form correct with the Thran Foundry and the Kataki. I think the Kataki is correct now that there's a lot more artifacts around here, but the Thran Foundry is much less correct. I have it in my board as a hedge against Doomsday because I'm testing for a tournament in March, and I want to be able to test out this card, see if it's actually going to be good in the Doomsday matchup, and if it is good, then I'll bring it with me. But my sideboard plan was I took out Sanctum Prelate, Skyclave Apparition, and Lion Sash, which, by the way, is completely wrong. This is a terrible sideboard plan. I should not have won this game off this sideboard plan. And I brought in my two Council's Judgments and my Containment Priest, which is like the standard fair sideboard plan bring in. What I should have brought in is also this Pithing Needle, because Pithing Needle can name any permanent that your opponent has that you currently don't have, and it just shuts it off for you. And normally it's pretty good in the mirror match, because if they have an Urza Saga and you don't, you get to needle their Urza Saga. If they have a Jet and you don't, you get to needle their Jet. Or the GT. Great thing. Anyways, that sideboard plan comes up later. We both reveal Yorion. I'm on the play. I do keep this 7. So I turn 1. Oops, sorry. Pause. Okay, there we go. Sorry, it went a little fast. I turn 1 planes, Mother Runes. I pass the turn. They turn 1 planes, Ether Vial, pitch, Stoneforge Mystic to Solitude, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm pretty happy with that plan. So they Solitude, just kill this. They 2-for-1 themselves to deal with the Mother Runes. I'm pretty happy about that. And here I draw Stoneforge Mystic for turn. I want to be able to leave up Containment Priest, I feel. So I just play my planes and I pass. I'm leaning on using the Sword Supplators as removal, or just flashing in this Containment Priest if they try to vial something in. Which they can't vial in much. They can vial in a Mother of Runes, but that's it. So they play their planes and they pass. I'm like, okay, cool. I draw another planes and I play this. I'm intentionally keeping Urza Saga in my hand so that I can have a higher chance of being able to get the full value out of Saga, because I want to be able to get full value out of Saga. It's very good for me to get full value out of Urza Saga. And it's just putting the 2 bodies on the board and getting something like an Ether Vial or something like a Shadow Spear, your Pithing Needle, is pretty potent in these sideboard matches. And having the 2 bodies is really good because they're normally 3/3s. Sometimes one's a 4/4, the other one's a 3/3, or etc. And just having those solid bodies against everything, against the deck where everything is 2 toughness or less, is pretty good, because it means that you will always be able to get a 1-for-1 trade out of that. And since Urza Saga makes 2, it's basically like a 2-for-1 or a 3-for-1 with what Urza Saga does. Very good. I want to be able to keep up my Saga activations and get my full value out of it. And here I just deem it safe to play Shadow Spear. If they play a creature and don't put anything in on Vial, I can just say okay. And if they have something that I'd want to remove, I can remove it anyways, thanks to Containment Priest. They do not put anything in off a Vial at the end of my turn. We just both pass here. And I say okay. I draw for turn. Now I play Saga because I'm forced to. And now I play Stoneforge Mystic. And then I do use Stoneforge Mystic and I grab Jet. And I pass. Because Jet is really good against a non-Mother of Runes Death and Taxes. They pass the turn. Or I pass the turn. They activate Vial and I immediately place Containment Priest. Prevent them from getting that Vial advantage out. They uptick their Vial. They play their land. And then I believe they Skyclave. Yeah, they Skyclave my Containment Priest. And I say, okay, there's anything I can do about that. I draw my own Skyclave. And here I'm just in this, okay, I'm going to leave up all my mana and pass. And here's why. I could have cast Skyclave Apparition, but I would have been denying myself the value of this Urza Saga. And against a resource light opponent with only 2 cards in hand, I want to be able to leverage those resources as much as I can. Also, if they like play a Wasteland and get my Saga, or they play a Needle and they get my Saga, and I'm like, okay, use it to violin, buy a Stoneforge Mystic, use it to put in my Jet. And I want to have my Skyclave Apparition have a little bit more impact. So I just pass the turn. They do not activate Vial, which is pretty big. That tells me they don't have a 3-drop in hand currently. They Stoneforge Mystic. And they grab Cauldron Complete. And they Stoneforge Mystic. And I'm like, okay, so they have Cauldron Complete, Batterskull, and an Unknown in hand. So I make my Saga token. And then I Swords 1 Stoneforge Mystic. And then I just let the Saga go. I deem it not really worthy to have the full value right now because my hand is so mana hungry that at this point I want to be able to use all of it. So I grab a Vial, I play my land, and I use the mana here to Skyclave Apparition one of their Mystics. And then I get this attack in for 3. I'm again leaving open this 2 mana to activate my own Stoneforge Mystic or Swords of Threat. They have Tick Vial to 4. They currently have Batterskull, Cauldron Complete, and 1 Unknown in hand. They play Mother of Runes, and they buy Yorion, and I'm like, okay, this is fine. I believe I Swords this Mother of Runes. Oh no, I put in Jet. They have Vial up on 5, so they can put in... The reason why I don't Swords there is because they have Vial up on 5, so they can put in their Yorion and flicker out their board to protect it from swords. So I uptick Vial, I draw Timeless Dragon, I equip here, I'm like, okay, and they have Solitude in hand. I thought they had Solitude in hand just because they upticked to 5 before deciding to put Yorion in hand, so I just say, okay. There isn't much I can really do about that. And I don't really want to invest the mana. I don't really want to invest the mana in putting on Jet and attacking with something only to have it trade and then kill a threat. And normally that wouldn't be... And if I put it on Skyclave Apparition, they just kill the Apparition. Stoneforge Mystic wouldn't get anything done. So I cycle Timeless Dragon for a plane so that I can hit my land drop, and I play my land. And I Swords their Skyclave Apparition. I decide that Swordsing Skyclave Apparition is more important than killing Solitude, because Solitude can't eat Jet, can't eat GT. And I'm basically conceding the fact that they're always going to have this live Mother of Runes. So I attack for 2, because it would be an easy trade. Maybe I probably should have attacked for 2 beforehand. That's actually what I should have done. So that way I could make them make the choice. Like, say maybe they were safe. They felt okay blocking with a Skyclave Apparition. They probably didn't, but let's say they did. And then I could have used the Swords on their Solitude and just denied them all of this Yorion value that they're about to get. So they draw Council's Judgment, which is pretty good here, and it answers the Jet. So nothing else, so just holding up their Yorion activation. We still know their full hand of Yorion, Batterskull, and Cauldron Complete. I uptick Vial, and I draw another land. So now, I equip Shadow Spear up, and I attack. And then, well, my reasoning behind this attack was, okay, they're probably going to attack and violate Yorion, and I'm okay trading that for life, and this has Trample. They could have Mother Runes, given it protection, but that didn't play well around Removal Spell, which I was kind of representing here by holding this Plains, but I digress. So they're putting Yorion, flicker their Solitude. I still Trample over for 3, and I just buy my Yorion and play my land. And they say go, they get a flicker out they get a Solitude my Skyclave, and I'm feeling pretty not great. Just because my Yorion is going to have much less impact. They have another Mother of Runes. Okay, I am never going to be able to kill anything on this board. So they make a big attack. I don't block, and I take 9, which is fine. I was at 30 life. I keep going. I keep upticking my Vial. I draw Swords to Plowshares, which I think is just so dead in my hand. I'm never going to be able to use it. This is never going to be a viable or good card. It's basically like a dead draw. So I decide I can probably get in for free for this Stoneforge Mystic, because I don't think that they'll double block their Mother Runes, and if they do double block with their Mother Runes, then I get to kill them. So now, and I attack to keep gaining life here and getting cross damage, because I believe my clock is better at this point, but it's not. So I flick out my Stoneforge Mystic, and I grab my Cauldron Complete. Because even if they answer the Stoneforge Mystic, I'm pretty soon to hit land number 7. And I just hold up the swords. I hold up the swords for basically the rest of the game. They rip Skyclave off the top, so they get to kill my... Yep, they get to kill my Stoneforge Mystic. They attack in with Solitude, given protection from white. I'm like, okay, we can take these exchanges. So we uptick. I draw a land, number 7, off the top, just like I drew it up. And then I just slam Cauldron Complete, because they have no removal. They have no removal right now. They don't have a Caracas to pick up the Yorion, flicker their board, and get more value. They have Battle Skull Cauldron Complete in hand still. And now I'm just in, okay, let's give us the race. So here they block, give protection. They still take 4 damage. Or they still take 5 damage because of how this trick works. Of Mother Runing them, which I made the same mistake against. And they draw Recruit of the Guard. Recruit of the Guard grabs Solitude. So they attack, and I'm like, okay, I can't do much about this because they gave it pro blue. And now they get the option to just violin their Solitude at any point in time. I leave Vial on 3, and I leave Vial on 3 for basically the rest of the game, because I've decided that my best way of getting back into this game is having one of my powerful 3-drops, like my Flicker Wisps, or my Recruit of the Guards, to grab a Solitude and cast it or something like that. Having a double removal spell. I draw the worst draw in my deck, which is Spirit of the Labyrinth. I'm like, oh no, I was supposed to take these out. These do nothing in the matchup. It's true, they do nothing. So I attack in, and they Solitude out my Germ token, so they only take 4. And I say, okay. And then I believe I just play the Spirit of the Labyrinth. No, I Eternalize my Timeless Dragon. I Eternalize my Timeless Dragon to have another flying blocker, because I think by this stage of the game, like, okay, they only have 1 flyer. If I Eternalize this Timeless Dragon, I'm going to have 2 flyers, and then this Cauldron Complete can actually get some work done. And then I play the Spirit of the Labyrinth because I decide that I can chump block, and I don't want it as a pitch card. My opponents probably think that those shouldn't be in your deck anymore. They shouldn't be. They draw land number 5, which means they can Batter Skull. They almost attack with Solitude, but then they don't, because they realize that it wouldn't have been a good trade. They could have given it pro black and pro blue, and I still could have blocked with my white creature. So then they just cast their Batter Skull, and I'm like, okay, I can't do anything about that. I leave Vial on 3. I draw a land for turn. I play land for turn. And then I re-equip Cauldron to, I believe, the Timeless Dragon, so that it's a 9/9. And I attack. And they give it pro black. And this still tramples over for 9, I believe. No, wait. They were at 13. No, it tramples over for 5 still. Okay, then I was wrong. I'm an idiot for this entire video. They leave their Vial on 5. They draw, or they re-equip Batter Skull to the Yorion. And then they attack. I'm like, okay, and I set up blocks like this, because I want to keep them from gaining life. And I want to keep them... I just want to keep them from gaining life because I want to try and aggress in the air with this Timeless Dragon. And they read that pretty well, and they have Yorion here on tap. So they Mother of Runes, give protection through this Solitude. And I'm like, wow, you want to keep this Solitude around that badly that you're using your Mother of Runes to give a protection? Okay, I'll buy that. I'll buy that and send that to the bank. Because this leaves a very crucial window for me to actually make use out of the Swords to Plowshares, which is stuck dead in my hand for a while. And then this Solitude and Spirit of the Labyrinth trade, because that's all that was ever going to be. We pass the turn. They currently have Cauldron Complete and 1 Unknown in hand. I leave Vial on 3, and then I draw Recruit of the Guard, which is best draw. I vial in Recruit of the Guard. I use it to grab Solitude. I re-equip over here. And they attack, and I attack in with Timeless Dragon. And what I do, oh no, I didn't want this. I didn't want this. Okay, sorry, that skipped so fast. So I attack with Timeless Dragon, see if they'll block with their Yorion. They don't. And I say, okay, I'm going to cast my Solitude. And I target the Yorion with the trigger. And they say, okay, in response, give it Mother Rune's tap to give it protection from the color of my choice. I'm like, in response, switch to Plowshares. So now they have no flying blockers. I have 2 flying threats of 14 power in the air. And they only have 1 lifelinker in their Batter Skull to play with. And my Shadow Spear is also gating me life at this point in the game. And then, oh, it doesn't show here, but they conceded at this point. They drew and conceded. So I'm like, awesome. We're up game 1. And then game 3, my opponent is so low on clock that I can basically say they can win the game in 5 minutes. It's possible for them to win the game in 5 minutes, but only with a specific draw. They need to be able to... They need to be able to have a really fast Stoneforge Mystic start and keep that around so that they can call to complete, do all those things, get value out of that. And I know that that's the draw that they have to have. So they choose to play first. I reveal Yorion. Also, I fixed my sideboard. I took out most of the... I still didn't bring in the Pithing Needles. Unfused sideboard. I fixed my sideboard. I still didn't bring in the Pithing Needle. Oh, wait. Yes, I did. I took out the 2 Spirit of the Labyrinths and brought in Pithing Needle and the Skyclave Apparition. I probably should have also brought in the Lion Sass just because it has the incidental value of growing really, really big, but I just didn't read that at the time, so this was my keep. And I kept this 7 because I said, great, this has Council's Judgment, which is uncounterable, unprotectable removal against the Stoneforge Mystic. I brought in Flicker Wisp because it's, I kept Flicker Wisp because it answers a Call to Complete, and has Cathar Commando to answer Jet or anything else that they try to do to run away with the game, and then I just have a turn 1 Vial, and then 3 lands. This pretty desperately needs a second white source, but that's about it. And I draw the second white source on my first turn, I'm like, perfect. I Plains, and I play Ether Vial. Sorry, the mistapper keeps happening. So they play Wasteland, Stoneforge Mystic, grab Call to Complete. I'm like, okay. So, and I draw another Council's Judgment. So I'm thinking about what I want to do in this next turn cycle. I definitely want to be able to only use the Flicker Wisp to deal with the Call to Complete, because if they don't have a Flicker Wisp of their own, then that's fine. They Call to Complete, I just take this hit for 5, and I say, okay, this is fine. Pass. I flash in my Cathar Commando because it's mana efficient. I Uptick Vial because it's the right thing to do. I draw an Urza Saga, which would be pretty good, except my opponent's on Wasteland, or has a Wasteland draw. So I'm going to sandbag this Urza Saga as long as I can. I play my own Wasteland, fully intending to be able to bait this Wasteland activation into this Wasteland. So I just play out my Flicker Wisp, flicker out the Germ Token. I could have Council's Judgment voted for the Call to Complete, but if they did not have a way to either equip, if they did not have 7 mana to re-equip Call to Complete, or if they didn't have a Flicker Wisp or a way to get Yorion in play relatively easily, then this Call to Complete's just going to sit on the battlefield and do nothing. And this adds a body in the air, which is pretty important for start getting in there for some life total. So I attack for 3, I pass. They draw a land, and they play Recruit of the Guard. And they recruit for, I believe, a Solitude. Right? They get a Flicker Wisp, so that they can, which is probably their best draw, or best get. They can they can flicker their Recruiter and grab something else to build card advantage. Or what they're likely going to do is they're going to flicker this Call to Complete and answer it that way. And I say, okay. And then they Wasteland my Wasteland. And I'm like, okay, I will take that. And then I think I just take this hit. No, I trade. I trade here because I don't want them to be able to Flicker Wisp the Stoneforge Mystic and grab an Umazama's Jit. because all my board is X1. So if they just have land number 4, if they have land number 4 jet equip, just in general, it's pretty bad. And I'm not looking to abuse this Flicker Wisp value anytime soon. So I say go. And I uptick Vial, and I draw a Solitude. And here I have the decision of what I want to do with this next turn. I could Council's Judgment, just eat this Call to Complete, but then they just get to Flicker their Recruiter, and I want them to basically waste their Flicker Wisp value. So here I just attack because I'm figuring they're not going to block, but if they do, it's great for me. They do not block, so I play Port, and then I just pick up Yorion as my white card to pitch to this Solitude if I really, 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 really need it. So then they Flicker Wisp, flicker out the Call to Complete. It doesn't come back until the end of their turn. I say, okay, cool. They get back their Germ. And I uptick Vial to 4 because I have 2 5-drops in hand, and I want to be able to get those. Then I play Urza Saga finally because I feel like I can finally get good value out of it, especially since I have Vial up on 4. And then I Council's Judgment, vote for the Call to Complete, and get that out of the way. And then I attack with Cathar Commando still because it's still good value to deny them this ETB effect. So they play Caracas, which doesn't line up well against my Yorion, but whatever. And they Council's Judgment, vote for my Vial. I'm like, okay, that's fine, but I still have land number 5. They attack with the Wisp, and I say sure. And I draw Batterskull. So here I just attack for my Cathar Commando. They block. And I just say sure. Pass. They have Wasteland for my Urza Saga. I just float the mana. I decide to not get the Saga value because I'm like, okay, I'm just going to Solitude this Flicker Wisp, but that's all the turn's going to be. So I Solitude this Flicker Wisp. Just get it out of there. And they Stoneforge Mystic. Grab Jet. Like, okay, I draw land number 5 because I'm really, really lucky. And I attack, offer the trade, and then I Solitude, Flicker, or I Yorion, Flicker their Solitude, and get them out of there. They only have 2 minutes left on the clock. They will not have a creature that is able to attack, and I still have this Council's Judgment to be able to efficiently eat this Jet and port them next turn. So I'm feeling pretty good. And I won that game because I was able to effectively I got a little bit lucky on drawing land number 5 for this Yorion, but I was able to effectively leverage my resources to fight this Death and Taxes mirror. And I feel like that's what it really comes down to. You need to make every single use of your resources to be able to fight this mirror, and also just drawing both of your Council's Judgments in your 80 card deck is pretty good. And having that long game, I did not expect to win that game number 2, but I was just able to have Call to Complete be an effective for me. And of course, for every Death and Taxes game you win, there's going to be another Death and Taxes game that you lose. So this is my Death and Taxes game that I played immediately after it. I was like, okay, I'll finish out my Legacy League. And I matched in the mirror again. I hate playing the mirror. I'm like, okay, this hand's fine. This hand's fine. I get a Flicker Wisp to flicker out Germ tokens. I have a Stoneforge Mystic on turn 2, and I have this Thalia to pitch this Solitude. This is fine. So I draw Vial because I'm really lucky. So I just play Plains, play Vial, say go. They draw Saga and pass. I'm like, okay. I'm gonna power out the Stoneforge Mystic and I'm gonna grab Call to Complete. Here I think this was a mistake. I think I should have grabbed Jet because I didn't know that they were on like I didn't know if they were on a lower resource game or something like that, but I decided that having Call to Complete would strain their resources the most. And they have the removal for the Stoneforge, and I say fine. They have a land, and then they have another land for the Urza Saga, and I'm like, that's not great, but okay. I'm just gonna have to answer this. Flicker Wisp, or Vial ticks up, and I drop Prelate, which is a pretty bad card in the matchup. It only ever, like, answers removal spells, kind of. So I just buy Yorion for my turn. Then they make a token. They activate Vial, put in their own Stoneforge Mystic, and I'm like, heck. So I wait to see what they grab. They grab Call to Complete as well. So I pitch Thalia to Solitude here. And I just eat this Stoneforge Mystic right away so that they can't get that value. The Urza Saga make another token. And it's pretty clear that that's how they're going to be planning on winning this game. So they have a token of their own. I uptick Vial. I just play my planes and pass here. My plan is to vial in this Flicker Wisp on their attack step, or when they go to equip the Shadow Spear. And they grab and they vial in Recruiter. And they grab their own Flicker so that they can start wisping out stuff. And I'm like, okay, this is fine. And I'm basically holding up the sword so that I can wisp out their Recruiter. They declare attacks. I activate Vial. I vial in wisp out this construct token, and then I just take it. Because if I hit another land, I can just Yorion Flicker. And they vial in Recruiter still in the combat step. They were very quick to vial in things on the combat step, and they grab Cathar Commando. And they Cathar Commando still in the combat step, and then they activate it on my Saga. So I just make a construct token. And then I, on the end step to be mana efficient, I swords their Recruiter. Because this is the best thing that they can flicker with the Flicker Wisp, so that's what it is. And here I uptick Vial to 4, I play my land, and I attack for a bit. And then I just play Prelate on 1, so that they can't efficiently swords me. So they wisp out my Vial. Like, okay, this is pretty bad. This is pretty feels bad. And they equip to construct and everything. I get back my Vial. I uptick. I draw the land number 5 like I never didn't have it. And I just slam Yorion, flicker out my Flicker Wisps so that I can flicker out their construct. I decided to attack here to I decided to attack here to try and get a little bit of this flicker value off the board if they decide to Yorion Vial and stuff as well. But I digress. So they uptick their Vial. They evoke a Solitude on my Yorion, and I'm like, well, heck. They only have 1 card in hand. They pitched Thalia to their Yorion, to their Solitude as well. Like, okay. And then they buy Yorion. So my Flicker Wisp trigger goes off. I uptick my Vial. I have a Recruiter, and I have to think, okay, what do I want to recruit of? So I start thinking, okay, what can I recruit her for? What's the most effective thing here? And I know they have Call to Complete and Yorion in hand. I know that's what they have. And I have a Vial on 2. I haven't used my Cathar Commando yet, so I decide that it's going to be the most effective play for me to start denying this Yorion for as long as possible. So I Recruiter. Well, I attack first, see if I can get any free trades. I can't. So I cast Recruiter. Put the Cathar Commando. Get Cathar Commando. Blow up Vial, and I just hope that they don't hit land number 5. Which they don't. They equip up and attack, and I'm like, perfect. Great. They attack, and then they play Spirit of the Labyrinth, which is their draw for turn. I'm like, perfect. This is just fine. So I uptick Vial to 3. And I think about I try to cast Vial, but I can't because of the Sanctum Prelate. So I start porting them out of their planes, and they draw land number 5 that turn. And here we're just in this sort of staring match. And I have to hope they don't draw again, but they do draw the Caracas, and they get to start, they get to cast their Yorion. I decide to wasteland their Caracas right away, so that they can't just pick up the Yorion and start getting value out of this Recruiter Yorion Flicker synergies. So they attack in, or they don't attack in, rather. And they Recruiter for a Stoneforge Mystic, and then they flicker out their Recruiter again. I don't uptick Vial, I leave it on 3, and I draw Iganzo Seed of the Empire, which is one of the new cards I'm testing out from Neon Dynasty. And I just port them again because they're off of land number 5. They draw Saga, they play the Stoneforge Mystic, they grab Jet, and they attack for 5. And I decide that it's probably worth it to kill this Yorion with my Iganzo Seed of the Empire. And that's what I do. And then they cast they cast the Flicker Wisp that they got off of their second Recruiter trigger. And then they Recruiter grab Skyclave Apparition, and then it's my turn. And I draw a Skyclave of my own, and I Skyclave the Stoneforge Mystic so that they can't Call to Complete me. And I put this down, and then they attack with Jet, and I'm like, okay, this game's over because they got Jet online, because it is. And then game number 2, I won. I was on the play first, I reveal Yorion. My sideboard plan was a lot better. This game, I took out all my Spirit of the Labyrinths and just brought in my Pithing Needle. I brought in my 2 Council's Judgments, and I brought in my Containment Priest again. I mull my 6 because it's Garbo, and I'm like, this hand keeps. I bottom my Call to Complete, and I play my planes, and I say go. and they play Plains Say Go. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna play Shadow Spear. I want to leave up swords for removal on their Stoneforge Mystic or something like that, and I don't want to just expose my Stoneforge Mystic without having a good idea of what they're on. And I also don't want to play out this Needle without having a good idea of what they're playing. So I say, okay. And then they Urza Saga. They grab Calder Complete, so I swords the Stoneforge Mystic. And I know this Calder Complete's offline. So I Stoneforge Mystic, I grab my Jet, and then I play Pithing Needle on Urza Saga so that they can't activate Saga ability. And then they play an Ether Vial, and they pass. They port me. And I just float my mana and cast in a Cathar Commando. I draw a Calder Complete for turn. I just attack with Stoneforge. And then they Urza Saga sack it, grab that. And then they accidentally Rishadan port my Eigancho, Seed of the Empire, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. They pass, and then they Wasteland it, which is the correct thing to do. And then I'm like, okay, put in this Calder Complete, this game's over. And this game is over. They concede after that. And then game number 3 was just, I got very unlucky. Game number 3 was, got the same sideboard plan. I keep this 7, because I'm like, okay, this has Jet, Containment Priest, and Ether Vial. Fine. So I Plains Vial, but from both of us. They play Saga. Hold on, I'm sorry this is going so fast, because of the misclicks. No! Well, now you can see this game going really, really fast. To try to violin something, I Containment Priest. I've broken the replay system. Is it back to being normal? Okay, sorry. That was a lot of things that happened. They got Saga to successfully go off. One of my misplays was that I cast Jet at a place where I had 2 mana to be mana efficient when I should not have. I should have just used that mana for a port or something like that. Because then I played Jet and they got to Needle name Jet immediately. And then, oh yeah, they made another Saga token and then they Wastelanded my Saga and then I swords to their Saga thing. That's where we're at right now. Sorry for all that confusion. And then I'm like, okay, this is a pretty good spot if I just get to hit the next land. I stupidly uptick Vial to 4, in my opinion, because I'm like, okay, it might as well. And then I have Skyclave, which would have been great here in a second. I just attack in for 2. I'm like, okay, this is fine. And then I swords their Mother Runes because I just need to answer it. And then they swords my Containment Priest, and I'm like, crap. Well, now I wanted this Vial on 3 because now I could violin an answer to. I could violin something like an answer to their Skyclave or whatever they put in. And they Skyclave, targeting my Vial. Okay, I could have responded with a Skyclave on this Skyclave, but that's a minor edge. And then I just have no mana for the rest of this game. Like, this game is just, I draw no lands. They get a beat in with this Cathar Commando and everything like that. I do cast this. They path my Cathar Commando because they're playing Path. It's a terrible card to be playing. You should not be playing Path to Exile. So I take the land instead of sacrificing and dealing with this Ether Vial or this Pithing Needle. I draw the land and I decide, okay, I'm gonna Recruiter, grab Solitude, play Solitude, or get Solitude, because I can still like pitch and deal with this, but I still have so many other things to deal with. But that is a start. And I just take this hit. I'm high rolling, drawing another land or a useless white card. Put Yorin in hand. I say go. I Needle with the intention of naming Vial. They Yorion flicker their board because they're like, okay, I need to do this before I name Vial. And I chose Karakas so that they couldn't just bounce Yorion, keep that loop on going forever. So I evoke Solitude there. And then what I should have done here is that I should have attached Shadow Spear to the Recruiter and attacked in for 2 to gain 2 life so that I just wasn't dead to this Yorion on the crackback. And here's why I'm dead to this Yorion on the crackback. Because they take away my Shadow Spear so that I can't gain life, and then they just get Shadow Spear with Urza Saga, equip it with Yorion. I'm like, okay, I'm dead. So every time the Death and Taxes taketh, the Death and Taxes also. And then I lost this next match on my league for Turbo Delver. Don't look at any of my ratings. They're garbage because I'm a garbage player. But yeah, that was it. I hope that this has, oh, I'm gonna autosave. this has been hopefully the best Death and Taxes versus Death and Taxes mirror idea that you can get, because I've always struggled with this matchup, and I hope this is pretty relevant to what you're doing in Death and Taxes. So have a great rest of your days, evenings, whatever time of the world you're looking at here, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.